with this, we're going to start making decisions. For the decision making, we're going to use this method, uh, which is cost volume profit analysis method, which can help you to understand the cost and give you ability to some extent, to control the cost. What's this about? This cost volume profit analysis obviously is affected. We're going to see what effect is on the change in the costs and the volume. And once we change those two, how we can affect the company profit. This will be critical for decision making from you and how you can plan your profit in the future. We're going to, in order to do this analysis, we're going to consider interrelations or interaction between 5 components. First one is the volume of activity or volume of sales, selling price, and the 2 costs, but we're going to split them only on variable and fixed. And the last thing that we're going to consider is what if we have a sales mix? What if we don't sell in one unit, one product? What if we sell more than one product? How are we going to deal in that situation, and how we're going to interpret sales versus the cost and how that affect the profit? Before we start doing the whole thing is we have to have some assumptions. First assumption is all the revenue and all the cost behave on linear. That means they don't change their behavior within the relevant range. That's how we can predict them. Second, from all the costs that the company have, we're going to split them only by 2 costs, variable, fixed. Next thing, the only thing that's going to change in the whole situation is the level of activity. Either we're going to start selling more units, either we're going to start selling less units. Nothing else changes. Costs don't change, sales price don't change, nothing else. And then we're going to see what's the effect in the change in activity into the profit. The other assumption that we're going to make is we're not building inventory, means that whatever we produce, that's exactly how much we sell. All the units produced are sold. And when we have more than one product, means that we have to see, if we have to sell more than one product, that will be our sales mix. The sales mix always going to stay the same. We're not changing the sales mix. So as you can see, the only thing that trying to find out is how the change in activity level is going to affect our profit through the sales and through the costs. So what we're going to do? First, we're going to prepare for our internal purposes income statement, which is going to look very much like income statement that we did in the first part of this course, with slightly difference. We're going to pull out the costs and we're going to split them only on how the costs behave. And costs behave either as a variable, either as a fixed cost. And that's the only behavior that we can expect from the cost, nothing else. So at this point, I'm going to stop the slides and we're going to come back to the slides, I believe, next time. And we're going to move to Excel spreadsheet, where on the Excel spreadsheet and try to explain everything that we have to cover in the slides next week. So let's see how this is going to go. First, I have to do some adjustments on my Excel spreadsheet. Just give me a second, and then we can start one after another. Here we go. I'm ready with this my screen. So let's move now to the Excel spreadsheet and start with the Excel spreadsheet. So first thing first, before we start anything, let's remind ourselves something. What's the product cost? And what can I find in the product cost?
It's the cost that we incur to produce that product or make that product.
Okay, what kind of cost we have there?
So it will be the purchase of the raw material, the cost of raw material, the labor, and overheads.
Over here. So we have three costs. Go for it. First one,
Direct material,
direct material. Okay, so the cost will
direct
be
labor,
direct material, direct labor,
and
manufacture.
manufacturing of.
Excellent. So direct material, direct labor, we're gonna call it one way, and then we're gonna have direct labor and manufacturing overhead. We're gonna call it a different way, right? But all will be part of the product cost. Okay, so now let's do the traditional. We have two type of income statement. First one is traditional income statement. The traditional income statement is the same that we always did and we did in the first part of the course when we're doing the financial reporting. And in that reality, income statement start with
It's all our revenue
revenue or sales,
or sales.
revenue or sales. And after that, we have costs, right? Now let's
Yes.
pretend that we're running normal statement. So normal statement first will be cost of goods sold. We saw that in the class how we gonna get cost of goods sold based on the company, and then we're gonna have gross margin. So now what you have to understand is gross margin is simply calculation between the revenue minus cost of goods sold. Make sense?
Yes.
Then we have the operating expenses, and then there's another calculation to calculate the operating income. Correct? So gross margin minus the operating expenses, it's going to give us operating income. And we're done with this. Now, how are we going to move from the traditional income statement into the contribution margin income statement? We're going to do something very simple. We're going to get the costs, which are cost of goods sold in operating expenses. Let's put some numbers just to make sense. Let's say the sales are 100, cost of goods sold, let's say is 20, and then the gross margin obviously will be 100 minus 20, right?
80.
Right. And then we're going to have operating expense. Let's say operating expense are 70, and the operating income will be
10.
10. Why is 10? Because how much are our total costs?
90.
90. And which are our total costs? Our total costs are those two numbers and those two numbers only. Make sense? Nothing
Yes.
else. We have only those 20 and those 70, and that's our total cost. Stretch it, which is, in this case, is 90. Now, what I'm going to do with the 90, I'm going to pull this 90, and I'm going to split them only by 2, based on how they behave. And those two 90s, those 90s cost, have only 2 options. Either they're going to behave as a variable, either they're going to behave as a fixed cost. Nothing else. There's no other options for those 90. Either they're going to behave as a variable cost, either they're going to behave as a fixed cost. But in total, can I change them? No, I'm not going to change the total. The total always going to be 90, regardless how they behave. Make sense? So in my contribution statement, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with sales, same thing. Bottom line will be exactly the same. Top line will be same. Bottom line will be exactly the same. In fact, my sales always going to be. I'm not changing the sales. That means I cannot change since I'm not changing the cost, I cannot change the income. Income is going to be 10. So I know what I'm going to expect. I have my top line and I have my bottom line. So what's going to change in the middle? In the middle, something's going to change. First, I'm going to have variable cost here. Once I deduct the variable cost from the sales, I'm going to calculate the contribution margin. So that means how much contributes to me. And then I'm going to deduct the fixed cost. So now, obviously, those two costs, which are total 90, they're going to behave different way. So let's say the fixed costs are 60. Where's my contribution margin now?
Is it 40?
40.
Yeah.
How much should be my fixed cost?
It would be
90, maybe.
no, actually, if it's
It would be 30.
$30.
yeah,
Can be more?
no.
No. Why? Because my total costs are 90. Remember? My total costs are 90.
Oh,
So
yes.
basically, those two always and always gonna stay 90. And there's nothing I can do about it. Why? Because they already happened. That cost already happened. So always gonna be 90. So that's how I'm moving from traditional into the contribution margin income statement. Now, today we're going to see for what purpose why we need to go to the contribution margin, and how the contribution margin is going to help us to find out how can be more profitable and to understand from where the profit comes from. Before we do that, let's go with the simple observation of this statement. Let me grab it actually. I need only this thing. Let's put it here. No, more like here. So what we have, let's go with the sales only. Let's drop this revenue. Let's stay with sales. I have sales, I have variable cost. Let's pretend that at this point I'm selling only one unit. Now let's put it here, units. Units that I'm selling is only one unit. And one unit only. Okay? Once I'm selling one unit, I'm selling that unit for $100. Variable cost is 60. Contribution margin 40. The only thing that I'm going to change is let's change this fixed cost. Let's make it more realistic. Let's pretend that the fixed cost for the company now is $1,000. So where is my operating income at this point? It's not operating income, it's operating loss, correct?
Yes.
Right. So what we can see here, we can see from here and from here, we can see that sales minus total cost, it's going to give me what?
I want to say operating income or the
Then why don't you say it? That's going to give me my profit.
your profit.
Just say it, right? What we have on the top? Sales. What we have at the bottom? Operating income or profit. What's on the middle? Cost. Makes sense? How we gonna call the cost? So how we gonna call the cost? It doesn't matter. Is it gonna be product cost? Is it gonna be a variable or fixed cost? It doesn't matter. It's always gonna be cost. Make sense?
Yeah.
Top line always gonna on one side always gonna have sales, and the other side we're gonna see how much of those sales are actually left. Is there anything left? If there's something left, that we're gonna call it profit. If there's nothing left and we go in the minus, then we're gonna call it loss. Correct? So now, what is in this case, what we see, what's the total cost is equal to. Now you can jump and tell me what's the total cost. Which are the two elements of the total cost in this case, in the
Yeah.
contribution margin?
That's the variable and the fixed cost.
Variable cost plus fixed cost, right?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. What else we can see from here? I can see that once I get, how can I get the contribution margin?
Sales minus
Variable
cost.
I can see my contribution margin is equal
variable
sales minus the variable cost.
cost.
I can see that,
Mm.
correct?
Yes.
So if I can I also say the sales minus the variable cost minus the fixed cost in reality is going to give me the profit.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we already saw that sales minus the variable cost, that's my contribution margin. Correct?
Yes.
So that means if I substitute that contribution margin, so this contribution margin here with this part of the formula only, what I'm gonna get? Contribution margin minus the fixed cost is gonna give me profit. Correct?
Yes.
So if I'm selling only one unit, my contribution margin is $40. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, let's do this. Let's do this experiment and let's do something interesting. Let's sell 2 units. What's going to happen if we sell 2 units? So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it here. So now I'm selling 2 units. How much will be my sales?
200.
200.
So now my sales are 200. Make sense? How did I get 200? 100
Into
times
volume.
2. Right? What's happened in reality, what's happened with my sales?
It doubled.
It doubled. My sales doubled. What's going to happen with my variable cost now?
It's going to change.
What's going to happen? How it's going to change?
It should also double.
Double.
It should also double. So now the question is, if my sales have doubled and my variable costs have doubled, logically, what's going to happen with the contribution margin?
It should double too.
It should double too, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not changing the sales, I'm not changing the variable cost. What I'm doing is I'm only changing the number of units. Correct?
Yeah.
Did it double?
Yes.
Minus 120. Yet
Yes,
it's double. How about the fixed cost?
It will be
Should
the
stay the
same.
same.
Fixed cost, that's the beauty of the fixed cost. Fixed costs are fixed costs. Now, what's happened with my operating income or my operating loss in this case?
You've
The
got a
loss
less of a
includes-
loss.
I have
It's-
less of loss. Why? The question is, why I have less of cost? And how much is that less of cost?
Because
It's
we
less because
produce more units.
I'm selling more units. And also, how much is the
And our
difference between
contribution
this one
margin-
and this one?
40.
It's a 40.
$40. Why is 40?
The contribution margin is changed by 40.
Exactly. Because that contribution margin for the extra unit that I'm getting, I'm selling now, it comes directly to my operating income.
Yes.
Make sense?
Yeah. The change there is occurring. It will be changed, will be showing in the difference in operating income.
Right. So let's do something else. Let's get this. Let's triple it. Let's make it, let's triple it. How can I triple this?
By changing the unit.
By selling 3 units. Now what's going to happen with my sales price?
Triple.
It's going to triple. How much will be? 100
300.
times
Sure.
3. How about the variable cost?
Times
It's
3.
180.
Also is going to triple, right?
Yeah.
6 times 3. So what drives the sales and the variable cost? What drives them?
The number of units sold.
Number of
Number of
units.
units,
And
yeah.
number of units only. Make sense? Nothing else. Only the number of units. So if my sales triple, my variable cost triple, what's happened with my contribution margin?
Also tripled.
Triple.
Also tripled. Can you see it?
Yes.
Now what's going to happen with my operating income?
It will reduce by 120.
With or reduce with another $40.
Yeah.
Why with another $40? Because we sold one more unit. And every time when we're selling one unit,
Yeah, fixed costs remain the same.
what's going to happen if we're selling one more unit? My operating income is going to go up with $40.
40.
Make sense?
Yes.
So now the question is, once we know this, question is, without calculating sales and variable cost, can you tell me how much will be my contribution margin and contribution margin only if I sell 10 units?
400.
400. Why will be 400?
It's the original 1 unit contribution margin times 10
10.
times the number of units.
Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's see if that's true. Because some of you can say, ha ha ha, that's total nonsense. So what we have to do, we just have to do the calculation, see if that's gonna go. 100 times 10, how much is gonna be?
1,000.
1,000. Then we're going to 60 times 10,
600.
600. How much my contribution margin?
400.
400. Is that proof that we're correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Fixed cost gonna stay the same. There's not gonna change. What's gonna happen with our operating income?
600.
Increase, right? With how much? Compared to the very first
With
scenario? With the
400.
400.
Yeah.
Why? Because now we're selling 10 units. Let's see something else. Let's see another interesting thing that we can draw from here. We already know when we're doing this ratio analysis and when we do the common size ratios, we already know that the cells are always 100%, correct?
Yeah.
It's always 1 or 100%. We already know that.
Mhm.
Now the question is, how much is the variable cost out of cells? As a percentage of cells, how much is the variable cost?
At 60%,
60%. How do you get it? Variable cost divided by cells,
100.
right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
60%. This is when I sell 1 unit. How about if I'm selling 2 units? How much will be my percentage of the variable cost?
120.
60%.
120 divided by 200, which is going to give me 60%. How about if I sell 3 units? How much will be the variable cost as a percentage?
Still 60%.
Still 60%. Why?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because it's increasing in same ratio.
Right? Because we're not changing the sales and variable
Yeah,
cost per unit. The only thing that we're changing is the number of units.
number.
So the percentage always going to stay the same because the only thing that drives the cost is the number of units. And since the sales and the variable cost they're increasing in the same pattern, the percentage always going to be the same. Make sense?
Yeah.
So what we can conclude, the percentage of the variable cost, it doesn't change. Okay, how about the percentage of the contribution margin? Is it going to change?
It shouldn't change.
It
It's the
shouldn't
same.
change. It's always going to be the same. 40 divided by 100. And that's going to give us 40%. How about here? 40%.
40%.
How about 40%?
40%.
How about here?
40%.
40%. Is it possible to be any different?
No.
Yes.
No. Why? Because 100 minus 60 is 40.
Yes.
So how much will be my contribution margin percentage if I sell 1,532,785 units?
You will be
How much will
40%.
be my contribution margin as a percentage?
The same.
40%.
40%.
The same.
Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how many units I'm going to sell, my contribution margin per unit always going to be 40%. How about contribution margin as a dollar per unit? How much going to be?
It's still going to be 40%.
No, it's going to be $40,
Oh, well,
right?
yeah.
Now the fact
Okay,
that they're
$40.
40-40, it's going to be here. It's going to be $40 always. Make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And they're never going to change. Those two never going to change. They're always going to stay the way they are. Okay, that's great. So now let's see. Let's highlight here if when we're selling 1 unit, we're going to have this. If we're selling 2 units, we're going to have this. That will be our, if we do this, if we do it this way, it's going to happen. This one, if we do 3 units, we're going to have this one. So we start identifying some pattern, aren't we? What's our pattern? Sales never change. Variable
Correct.
costs never change. Contribution
That's
margin
correct.
never change. Which contribution margin doesn't change? As a dollar amount. Contribution margin per unit, right? Contribution margin per unit as a dollar amount never changes. But in total, changes proportionally with the number of unit sales. How about the contribution margin as a percentage? Always stays the same, regardless of the number of units. So how can I interpret this 40%? What the contribution margin of 40 tells me that for every dollar that I'm selling, how much I'm gonna get. For every dollar of sales, how much is gonna stay in my pocket?
40% of that dollar,
Which is
$40 in this case. If
no,
you
no,
take
no,
100,
no.
40
Every
cents.
dollar. I'm talking 40
40
cents. For
Mhm.
every dollar, I'm gonna keep only 40 cents. Make sense?
Okay.
Yes.
And they're always gonna stay the same. For every additional dollar that I'm selling, 40 cents are for me, 40 cents for me, 40 cents, 40 cents, 40 cents. So what do I have to do now? If I want, imagine this, if I want to have, let's say, what do I want? I want my operating income to be 0. Once I know that my fixed cost, do I know my fixed cost?
1,000.
I
Yes,
want
we
1,000. Do I know my contribution margin as a percentage? Yes, I know it.
Yes.
I want this one to be equal to 0. How can I make it?
Our contribution margins would be the same.
Contribution margins should be equal to my fixed cost.
Yes.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Is there any other option for my income to be 0? No. The only thing that I have to do is to bring my contribution margin to be equal to the fixed cost. Once I do that, my operating will be 0. So now what we have to, our objective today is to find out how many units we need to sell as a number of units and how much should be my total sales, that when I deduct the variable cost, it's going to give me amount which is magically equal to my fixed cost, so I can bring it to 0. So we have those formulas as a starting point. We already established those one, and we saw that how those one work. Now what we're going to get is we're going to get the point that we want our profit to be equal to 0. And that will be the point when my contribution margin is equal to
1,000.
What's the
fixed cost,
Yeah, fixed cost. Yeah, CM
right?
equals to.
Once I get my contribution margin to be equal to the fixed cost, my operating income profit will be 0.
Yeah.
Now, what we're chasing again? We're chasing 2 points here. First one is how many units we need to sell. So here we're going to look at the number of units we need to sell, how many. And the other option, the other thing that we're going to chase is how much should be my total sales. As a dollar amount should be how much. Okay, let's focus first on the number of units. Again, what's our objective? To get that contribution margin to be equal to the fixed cost. Once we get that, our problem is solved. What we know? We already know that sales minus total cost is going to equal to
Profit.
profit. But we said we don't want profit. That means sales should be equal to the total cost. Now let's see from where sales gonna come. Sales coming from the number of units that we're selling time sales price per unit, correct?
Yes.
Then we have total costs. But we said the total costs, we have variable cost here, and we have fixed cost here. Now, how about the variable cost? Variable cost will be equal to number of the units that we're selling time variable cost per unit, correct?
Yes.
Fixed cost is fixed cost. That's always the same. That's always stays same. So now, let's express this one in the first form. So what we have? We have sales. Actually, we have number of units times sales. Sales price per unit. Minus. We're going to have now number of units times variable cost per unit minus fixed cost. And once we get those one, that should give us our profit. In this case, since we want to be break even, that should be equal to 0. Now what we can see, we have number of units and number of units here, correct?
Yes.
Can I get this number of units in the front and say number of the units time in the bracket sales
Sales
price
unit
per unit
minus variable cost.
minus variable cost per unit
Yeah.
minus the fixed cost should give me my profit,
Profit.
Yeah.
right?
Yes. The unit.
But since we don't want profit, let's flip that fixed cost on the other side.
Yeah.
And what we can see that my sales cost per unit minus variable cost per unit, what's that gonna give me
Contribution.
Contribution margin.
per unit? So let's add it here somewhere that the sales minus the variable cost is gonna be in contribution margin. So what that means is that number of the units time contribution margin per unit. I have to magically make it equal to
Fixed
my fixed cost, correct?
cost. Yeah.
If I do that, my profit will be 0. So how many units I need to sell? Can I find out now?
Fixed cost by contribution.
Tell me now. What will be my formula for
Cost by
Fixed
number of
cost
units that I
divided
need to sell?
by contribution margin.
What will be my nominator, denominator here? Nominator,
Fixed cost.
nominator
fixed cost,
and
denominator,
CM unit.
Yeah.
Contribution margin.
contribution margin per unit. Sounds logical, right?
Yeah.
Let's see if this actually works. Because you can say, that's nice try, but we want proof. Correct? Let's prove it. Let's see if this actually works. So we know if we're selling 1 unit, that's what's happened. If I sell 2 units, that's what's happened. 3 units, that's what's happened. Now the question is, what's going to happen? How many units I need to sell in order to get my operating income to 0? So let's stay in this case. How many units we're gonna need to sell in order to get my operating down to 0? Let's use the formula.
Fixed cost 1,000.
So, do I know my fixed cost?
Yes.
Yes,
How much is that?
1,000.
1,000. Do I know my contribution margin per unit?
Yes.
How much is it?
40.
$40. So what do we have to do?
Divide
I just
by.
have to apply the formula, right? So how much is going to be?
25.
So fixed cost is 1,000. Variable contribution margin per unit is $40. Where am I? 1,000 divided by 40. It's going to be 25 units. And now you can start laughing. Ha ha ha. That's not true. What do we have to do? We just have to
But I think
put it here and see is this actually is going to be, how this actually is going to happen. Okay, if I'm selling 25 units, how much will be my total sales?
as 25 by 100.
2,500?
Yes.
How about the variable cost? 60 times 25, 1,500. How much my contribution margin now?
25 times 40.
1,000.
1,000. Is that how much I want it to be?
Yes.
Why? Because my fixed cost are fixed cost. Where is my operating income now?
0.
Exactly where I want it to be, correct?
Correct.
So let's change this one and let's put those 25 here. 25 here. If we do the 25, my operating income is 0. Let's sell one additional unit. If I sell one additional unit, can I predict my operating income now? If I sell 26 units, how much will be my operating income?
40.
$40.
Yes.
From where those $40 gonna come?
Your contribution margin.
With that additional unit. Make sense?
Yes.
So what we can say, so let's see this. If we sell 26 units, my operating income directly is $40. From where the $40 come from? From the contribution margin of that additional unit that we're selling.
Yeah, we have 1 unit equals to 45.
Right. That unit directly comes here. How about if I sell 10 units more? Then break even. How much will be my, instead of 25, if I sell 35 units, how much will be my operating income now?
400.
400. Why? Because I'm selling 10 more than,
10.
and that additional 10 times $40 is going to give me 400. So if I sell here 35 units, my income is going to be 400. So in that case, if I know where the break even is, can I predict my income if I know how many units I'm selling?
Yes.
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 That's what we want to be. We want to be in the position so we can predict things, but we can only predict them if this stays the same.
Yes.
Make sense? So obviously, this formula here that we did works. So let's highlight it in blue and let's leave it. Now, the next thing that we want to find out, if you remember, is we want to find how much the total sales should be in order to bring this one to 0. So again, our starting point is we want contribution margin to be equal to fixed cost. Now, the question is, if I do contribution margin time 1 equal to fixed cost, am I changing the formula?
No.
No. But what else I can do? I can tell you that sales divided by sales are equal to how much?
0.
No,
1.
1.
Oh, 1.
Makes sense? And not sales minus sales. Sales divided by sales. It's equal to 1. So if I substitute this 1 here in this formula with this sales divided by sales, am I changing the formula?
No.
No.
So I
That's
can say
correct.
contribution margin time sales divided by sales equal to the fixed cost. And I'm exactly at this point, correct?
Yeah.
So now, what I can see from here, I can see from here that contribution margin divided by sales time sales should be equal to the fixed cost, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But what's the contribution margin divided by sales? Contribution margin divided by, if I do that, what I'm gonna get? What's that gonna give me?
0.04.
What is that? Contribution margin ratio, isn't it? Can you see it? How can I get the contribution margin ratio in this case?
Oh, the contribution margin divided by sales is,
By sales. So
yeah.
once I get the contribution margin divided by sales, that's going to give me contribution margins ratio, right? Now let's substitute in this formula. Let's substitute this contribution margin divided by sales with the contribution margin plus ratio or contribution margin percentage. So what will be our formula now? Sales time contribution margin ratio should be equal to fixed cost.
Fixed cost. That's correct.
So how and what we want to find out, how much should be my sales?
Fixed cost divided by contribution.
That's divided by
Okay,
contribution.
it's gonna be fixed cost divided by contribution margin ratio.
Ratio.
Make sense?
The only difference is the units and the ratio.
One is for the number of units, the other one is for sales. So now let's see if this makes sense. If this actually works. Let's test it. Let's see if this actually works. Let's grab this calculation here. Now let's go up on this one. Let's grab this part. And let's flip it right here. And let's get our formula from here. And let's move it here. Okay. So what do we need to find out? Do I know my fixed cost?
Yes.
$1,000. Do I know my contribution margin ratio?
Yeah, 40%.
Of course, 40%. So what do you have to do? I just have to substitute in this formula. So my nominator will be
1,000.
1,000 and my denominator will be 40%. That's percentage. So my calculation here will be 1,000 divided by 40%. I need to generate how much?
2,500.
2,500. So how can I interpret this?
So break
I
even.
can interpret it by this way. Watch this. So if my sales are 2,500, and I already know that my contribution margin is 40%, how much will be my contribution margin?
Sorry, I didn't. Sorry.
How much of those 2,500, if I'm getting for every dollar 40 cents in my pocket, how much gonna convert into contribution margin?
1,000.
1,000.
1,000.
How much was my fixed cost?
1,000.
1,000. Did they get what they wanted?
0.
And now I'm break even, correct?
Uh,
Make sense?
Yes.
Can you guys see it?
Yes, I can.
So obviously this formula also works. So let's highlight it. Now we have two powerful formulas. The next question that we have to ask is, do you want to stay in the break even and work at break even? Do you
No,
like
you
to be
need to
on
make
break
a
even?
profit.
no.
Do you want to move away from the break even?
Yes.
Yes. How can we do that? This is the only question. How can we move from the break even? Well, it's very simple.
Mhm.
We're going to get this formula again. Let me put some rows here. We're going to get this formula and this formula only. I'll put it here because this is the formula that we're going to do. What we need to do is, if we want to have something, so what we know, I know how much is my fixed cost. It's $1,000, correct?
Yeah.
My contribution margin per unit is $40. The the thing that I need to know is how much income I want, how much profit I want. So how much profit you want from 10 to 20,000?
20,000?
20,000. So we want profit 20,000. What shall we do? Well, it's very simple. Whatever you want, just add it to the fixed cost. And if you add it to the fixed cost, you're gonna get it at the end. Make sense? If you want 20,000, just add the 20,000 to the fixed cost. Because don't forget, the contribution margin has to cover the fixed cost first. And if there's anything left, that's gonna come to your pocket. So the contribution margin has to be big enough. Here, this number has to be big enough to cover this cost and to give you what you want. So what we're gonna do? We make sure that this number covers fixed cost and gives you what you want. Give you the 20,000. Make sense?
Yes.
So let's add here the profit
Oh my God.
and let's modify it. So where are we going now?
खाना बनाती हूँ मैंने राइस खाना बहुत
How much will be my nominator now? 1,000 plus
20.
20,000, 21,000. How about contribution margin per unit? It's
What
gonna stay the
about
same.
after 3 वगैरह necessary okay होने मेरे reply
So how
करते
much will be here?
हैं
My number? What's the number that I'm gonna get here now?
So 1,000. 52.5. 52,500.
Is that what you're getting? 525 units?
Wait.
Are you guys with me?
Yes.
Is that what you're getting?
Yes, yes. 525.
525. So what that means? That means simply is if we get here, let me do some formatting first. If we get here 525, our income should be 20,000. Let's see if that's gonna work. So sales, how much will be my sales if I'm selling 525 units?
20,000.
This one time 525, it's gonna be
52,500.
52,500.
52,000.
That's my sales. Variable cost, how much will be my variable cost? 60
into 55,
times 525, 31,500.
52,
How much is my contribution margin now? This one minus this one.
21.
How much should be to get here 20?
There should be
21,000.
21,000.
21,000, right?
That will be
Did they get 21,000?
Yes.
Yes.
Did this cover my fixed cost?
yes,
Yes.
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 Did they get what they wanted?
yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So what you have to do is to remember whatever you want, just add it to the fixed cost. And you're gonna get it.
Oh wow, yeah.
Make sense?
Yes.
So now once I know this, let's see the next thing. What if we're using this formula for the sales? What's gonna happen in that case? Is this gonna work for this formula as well? That's what we're trying to find out. Let's copy this formula. No, first let's push this formula down a little bit because we're gonna use it. And let's copy our powerful formula, which is this one. So following the same pattern, like number of units, what do we have to do? We have to find out how much is my fixed cost. In this case, my fixed cost is 1,000. How much is my contribution margin ratio? We already know it's 40%, right? And the last thing that we need to know is to find our profit. How much you want to be your profit from $20,000 to $50,000?
50.
50,000? Give me some other number.
30,000.
30,000. Oh, 35.
75.
Let's go with 35,000.
Okay.
Let's go with some random number, 35,000. So, what was our sales on the break even? Our sales at break even was 2,500, right?
Yeah.
When we get 2,500, that means we're selling, how many? We're selling 25 units.
Our contribution margin of
Right.
1,000.
We're done. So now, what we have to do is, once you get the profit, same idea. Add the profit
Add
to the fixed cost.
fixed cost. Yeah.
No different than the previous one. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna add here profit. Let's do that and see what we're gonna have.
So fixed cost is 1,000 plus
That will be equal to 1,000 plus 35,000,
6,000.
36, divided by contribution margin, which is 40%. And what's the number that we're gonna get?
Nine.
So the question is, if my sales are $90,000 and 40% of those $90,000 come to my contribution margin, is that enough to cover my fixed costs and give me $35,000?
Yes.
Yes. So again, you get what you wanted. Make sense?
Yeah.
So now the next thing that I want you to realize is, again, let's get this one and let's put it here somewhere. Let's make the link between 35 and this 35. So now the next thing that I want you to realize is here at this point, when we're having this situation, this is our break-even point, correct?
Yeah.
On the
Point.
point that we're making zero profit. And this is, let's pretend currently, we're making, how much we're making currently? Give me a number that we currently generating as a income, operating income here. Or
18.
give me some number of units, random number of units above
No.
25.
Maybe 38.
No, more, higher.
Okay.
675.
Sorry, how much?
675.
675. I like this now. 675. Now the question is, if I'm currently, I'm here. That's my current situation.
Yeah.
And this is the break even.
Yeah.
That's my break even point. The question is, what is my margin of safety? So my margin of safety is simple. Where you are minus where the break-even point is.
Okay.
In other words, how distant you are from the break-even. So we can express it as a number of units, obviously, or we can express it as a dollar of sales. As a number of units, what's our margin of safety if we're selling 675 units?
650.
So that will be this one minus where the break-even is, 25. So our margin of safety is 650 units. Now the question is, if that's where we are, if the next month our sales drop with 100 units, do I have to worry about it?
No.
No,
No.
right?
If
Because
we have
I'm way above the break-even.
Yeah.
Correct.
If my sales drop with 200 units, do I have to worry about it?
No.
No. Again, I'm above break-even. Same thing applies to sales. Let's see how much is our margin of safety as a dollar of sales. That will be 67,500 minus 2,500. How much my margin of safety?
65,000.
$65,000. So if my sales drop with 20,000, do I have to worry about it?
Not
No,
really.
No,
not because we're way above, like by
we are way above. Do I need to know my margin of safety?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Make sense?
Yes.
Now, can I express margin of safety as a percentage? Yes, I can, usually. Why not?
margin,
In the number of units, percentage will be current,
margin.
where we are, what's the current, what's the margin of safety here, divided by our current situation. So this one divided by this one. So my margin of safety here as a percentage is 96%. So we are way, way, way in a good position. All right. So that's with the margin of safety. And I believe that's where we're gonna stop. Questions on the break even? Do you understand the whole idea with the break even?
Yes.
Yes,
So since we have time here with this group, you guys doing amazing job. Thank you.
Um, Professor,
Yes.
so in general, the break even is giving you like a benchmark on how well you're doing, right? Or if you should look into.
So the break even is the point that you're generating enough sales to cover your
expense.
expenses. So break even is the point that your operating income is zero.
Yeah, in that point, neither we are losing or neither we are gaining,
Neither we're
right?
losing, neither we make. Yes. We're not laughing, but we're not crying.
Yeah,
Okay.
but if we sell more from them, then will the company start getting revenue.
All right. How much revenue start getting? Equal to the contribution margin. For every single unit that you're selling. Make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
So now, how we can interpret all this situation? How can we make it useful for you? I'm gonna get this part here and this part here only, and I'm gonna flip it all the way on the bottom. And let's do some practical thinking here. Pretend that you're working on a wage, hourly wage. And for 1 hour of work, you don't have variable cost. But just pretend for a second there's no variable cost.
Okay.
So let's say you're working and your wage is $25 per hour. You don't have variable cost. But your rent, let's think about your rent. Your rent is $2,000 per month.
Okay.
Now the question is, how many hours you need to work to cover your rent? If your rent is $2,000 per month and your hourly wage is $20, $25 per hour. How many hours you need to work
80
to
hours.
cover your rate? 80 hours. Can you see
Yeah.
it?
Yes.
Now let's apply this and see if this is actually true. If you actually work 80 hours, how much income you're gonna generate? 25 times 80, you generate 2,000. to cover your rent. So what that means? If you work one more hour, what's going to happen? If you work 81 hours, for example,
We'll start like saving, like we'll start from
those money is going to go directly to your pocket.
yeah, saving.
That's where you can save, right? Now, if I know that $80 is the hours that I need to work to get to the break even, what else I can do? I can check and see how many weeks I need to work.
Yeah.
Or no, how many days. Let's go with the days. If you work 7.5 hours per day, how many days you need to work?
Get 80.
80
It's
divided by
divided
7.5,
about
11 days. If you work 8 hours per day,
10
10 days.
80 divided by 8, you need to work 10 days. So the question is, how can you pay your rent faster?
working more
Working
hours in a
days.
day.
One will be, no. Again, working more hours per day. That will be one way. What will be the other way?
Reducing the cost, also fixed cost can be reduced. That should be it.
Your wage to go up,
Our wages can be go up like more
to go
on
up,
per hour.
right? So let's see if your wage, so now if you're getting $25 per hour, that's what's gonna happen, correct?
Yeah.
Let's see here. If your wage goes to $30 per hour, what's gonna happen now?
There will be taxes.
How to increase?
Six.
So where we are now? We're on the 67 hours now.
Yeah.
Is it 67? 2000, 67? Why doesn't work? 2000, why we? Oh, because it's a very round number. That's why. So let's go with 30. No, let's go with let's go somewhere else. Let's go $35 per hour.
57 point.
If your rate goes to $35 per hour, you need to work now only 57 hours compared to 80 hours. How many days you saving? In total, you're saving 3 days.
3
Yeah.
days.
Make sense? Let's see the other application of it. There's one more application on this one. Watch this. Let's get this. I'm gonna post you this Excel spreadsheet later and you can use it for your purposes. Now, let's pretend for a second. Let's pretend for a second that this one is 0, this one, everything's 0. Let's stay with zeros. Let's pretend for the second that you're paying your monthly Compass card. Are you following me here?
Yeah.
How much you paying for the monthly Compass card if you're riding 2 zones?
148, I guess.
148.
I don't know.
Now the question is, watch me here carefully. How many times you need to ride the SkyTrain in order to cover your cost. What we have to find out? We have to find out how much is the
per trunk. Yeah.
single
Right.
price,
Yeah.
if we're paying for single ticket for 2 zones. Make sense?
Mhm.
Let's say on the regular day, let's see, Translink, link, fares. Okay, Translink fares.
think
And I'm gonna tell you right away on the zones, how much is for the zones. If you have 2 zones for adult, cash fare is 465. Single ticket cost you 465. Now the question is, how many times you have to ride the SkyTrain in order
one,
this one to
but
make sense? So which one is my nominator?
denominator 148
148 is my
divided by 4.
nominator. 465 is my denominator.
It become like 5.
So what we have to do? We have to make sure that we ride our SkyTrain how many times?
32 times.
At least we have to write 32 times
32 times
minimum.
minimum. If you ride it less than 32 times, what's going to happen?
It's still
We
gonna
will
have
be not like taking a ticket.
You're
It's
losing
not-
money.
Yeah.
Do you understand this? Can you see it? So let's say you're riding the SkyTrain only 2 times per month and you're paying 148. How much you lost?
Only 2 times payment 4.672 and then
So you're
minus.
losing 138 and 70.
Yeah.
If you're using the SkyTrain only 30 times per month, you're losing how much? $8.50. But if you're riding the SkyTrain 50 times per month, how much you're saving now? Can you see the calculation here?
okay.
Do you guys see my screen?
Yes.
So what's your incentive here? To ride the SkyTrain as much as you can when you pay the monthly pass. Because that's the only way you can generate savings. You're not gonna get income, but you can generate savings. Make sense? In any other cases, you're losing money. If you
But
don't go, or at least 32 times. Yes,
okay, so what you said, if you ride more than you're going to be generating savings, right?
yes.
I was thinking, like, if you ride more than, won't it be like a negative sign to your account? Or the 148 being a fixed price doesn't matter how, if you go more than 32?
Say that again. Sorry.
Okay, I said you stated that if you ride more than 32 times,
32
you
times, yes?
yeah, you end up saving more. It's to your
Yes.
own benefit. Then I was asking, isn't it going to be like a negative sign on your Compass card?
No.
Or being 148 is
No, because you're paying monthly pass.
Yeah, it's a fixed price. Even though you're traveling or not, you have to pay.
Right.
okay.
Make sense? That's the
But
key here. That's a fixed cost.
Yeah, but if you are not paying it like fixed and you are like paying for
Oh, no,
everything,
no. Yes, if you go the other way, then it's different story.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
Then become a variable cost,
yeah.
Oh,
right?
okay.
That's the options that you have here. You have fixed cost, which is the monthly pass, and you have a variable cost to pay per usage. Now, if you monitor yourself and if you ride the SkyTrain more than 33 times per month, what's the logical choice?
We have to buying is like saving.
Buy
Otherwise,
buy monthly pass to save
it's
money.
yeah.
But if you riding the SkyTrain less than 32 times, what will be the logical?
Rather you pay every time you
Right. Pay for every time when you're riding.
Yeah.
Make sense? This is the practical application of the break-even point. Break-even point simply tells you at which point you cover your fixed cost, or at which point you're using your fixed cost to the full maximum. Because you already pay for it anyway. Now the question is, can you use it? That's the key point here. Okay, excellent job, people. Thank you. It was really enjoyable to teach you for this break-even point. Now the question is, I have only one question for you for this group. In quiz 2, listen to me carefully now. In quiz 2, if I ask you to calculate me how many units you need to sell to get certain profit, can you do it?
Yes, perfect.
The other thing that I want you to understand is you don't need to know the whole information. Question for you. Watch this. Let's play with the numbers here. Just a little bit play with the numbers. That's what I want you to do at home when you have time. Play with the numbers and use this in different scenarios. You can do this calculation for so many different things. So let's stay with the example. Let's say my sales price is 200. Now I'm going with the random numbers. My variable cost, let's say, is 80. Now contribution margin become
20.
120, and let's say my fixed cost is $6,000. Let's say this is my scenario now. Okay. So now the question is, let's see this one. Let's read those one from each other, so we don't have to change the numbers all the time. And this one is equal to this one. So now, if I'm selling 2 units, that's what's going to happen. That's obvious. If I'm selling 10 units, that's what's going to happen. Now the question is, if I'm selling 100, let's say my sales, so let's say selling 650 units.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
If I'm selling 650 units, that's what's happened now. Okay, let's get this one here, and let's do the same color because I don't like this color. Make it the same. My point here is this, and listen to me carefully. If I start cutting the information from you, how comfortable you will be. That's the only case. So for example, I leave you the sales,
Mm-hmm.
I cut you the variable cost,
Mm-hmm.
and I cut you the contribution margin.
Mm-hmm.
and cut you the fixed cost. And I give you the ratios because you know the ratios, they don't change,
Yeah.
right? We already know, we already established the ratio, they don't change. Can you find me, what was that? 130,000. Can you find me how many units you need to sell to come up with the break even? This is the only information that you have.
Break even is the
Can you find
decrease.
me how many units you need to sell to come up with the break even?
Mm, yes, yes, we need to calculate.
So how you should approach this case? In this question, how should approach this question? So I'm chasing the number of units,
So we have units, right?
right? I
And
need to chase number of units. For the
yeah,
number of units, which formula I'm going to use? I'm going to use this formula. No questions about it, right? But for this
we can
formula, I need fixed cost.
Yeah.
Do I have fixed cost?
yeah 6,000.
No, 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 no,
Oh,
no. I
sorry,
don't
you
know it.
confused, right?
Only
Okay.
this is the only thing that you have. This is the only thing that you have.
Contribution margin will be 60%.
Can you get me the contribution margin from here?
Yeah,
60%,
60%.
right? How are we
Yeah.
going to get it? Sales minus variable cost contribution,
Mm,
variable cost margin. So can I
yes.
get now what will be my contribution margin in total?
60% of
60% of that one,
Yeah,
right?
78,000.
It's equal to this one
not showing anything
times
in my
78. But that still doesn't save me the problem, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Because right now, I don't know how much my fixed costs are.
Yes.
But
We need to find the
hold on
variable
a second.
cost.
Hold on a second. If
Sir,
if
but our
so,
if
so
our break even is
just second,
zero.
just second, just second. Let me change a little bit here. Let me change a little bit here. Let me go back. Let's go back. I'm telling you here, I'm giving you the sales. I'm giving you this one, and I'm telling you that my operating income is $6,500. Now, at this point, can you tell me how many units I need to sell to get the break even? This is the only information that you have, nothing else.
Good.
That's it. This is the only information that you have.
Okay.
So what can we do?
First, we can find because our
First, I can find
contribution
the
margin will be
contribution margin.
the
No, I
margin
can
is
find the contribution margin. How much is
yeah,
contribution margin?
60%,
60%. Okay.
sixty
When I
percent
find the
of sales
60%,
of
I can find how much is my contribution margin in total,
yeah,
right?
the 60% of sales.
130.
Times
That will be
60.
contribution margin. Yeah.
Okay, I have 78.
Yeah.
Now can I find my fixed cost?
Yeah. Yeah. That
Yeah,
minus like okay, that plus this will be
71,500.
Okay, I get that one.
and then now we if
So
sales
now,
and contribution
number of
margin
units,
get
you won't be able to find it, but can you find me the sales? by using this formula.
And after that finding, we can use this formula. Yeah.
No, not this formula. We're chasing this formula. This will be the formula that you can use, right? So can you find me now
For
the
the
sales
sales, yeah.
of the break-even?
Yeah, the fixed cost is 71,500 divided by contribution margin 60%.
Thank you.
And then unit also we can find. Unit equals to fixed cost by contribution margin unit.
Professor, sorry for interrupt. I can't understand the same how we get 78,000 from the ratio. Like how we
For the
calculated
ratio,
this.
okay.
Like,
So let's go back again. This is what we know. This is the only thing that we know. Sales, variable cost as a percentage, operating income in total.
Yeah.
The question is sales at break even. First, what we're gonna find out first. What's my contribution margin percentage? How is my contribution margin percentage? Sales as a percentage minus the variable cost as a percentage. What do I know about sales? Sales are always, what's the percentage of sales?
100%.
100.
100%, always. Do we have to think about it?
No.
Yes.
No. Sales are always 100%.
Mhm.
So now once I have my contribution margin as a percent, my variable cost as a percentage, I can easily get the contribution margin. How much is the contribution margin?
60%.
Percentage will be
100
equal to
minus 40.
100% minus 40% in this case. Contribution margin now percentage is 60%. Now what that means is whatever my sales are, only 60% of those sales coming as a contribution margin here, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that what that means is my contribution margin as a dollar amount in this case will be equal to my sales time contribution margin percentage. Make sense?
Yes.
So that means that my contribution margin should be equal to, I know my sales, 130,000 times 60% only coming, 78,000. So I get my 78,000.
Yes, Professor.
At this point, can I get my fixed cost? I know that
Yes.
my contribution margin minus the fixed cost is equal to operating income.
Oh.
So fixed cost is equal to contribution margin minus operating income. So my fixed costs here in this case are this one.
Minus
Fixed
operating
cost is equal to contribution margin minus operating income. 71,500. Once I have fixed cost, once I have 7,500, now I can easily calculate how much is my sales at the break-even point. Make sense?
Fixed cost divided by contribution margin.
But divided by contribution margin. Do I have it?
Yes. Fixed cost
Now I
we
know
have.
my fixed cost now is 71,500.
And then
My contribution margin percentage, we already calculated it 60%.
0.6.
So, and you're gonna get the how much it will be the sales at the break-even point. This one divided by that one, it's gonna give you
191.
right, whatever you're getting as a number. All right. That's what I want you to do on quiz 2. So let's go for the next week. Thank you again. So I'm going to
Thank you.
post you this one. This one will be available for you. Let me show you when I'm posting this one so you can have it. Today week 6 is the next week. So okay, this one is, let's stop this sharing. And let me share my screen with the UCW website. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, and the file will be posted. And you have the calculation right here. The recording from today is going to be posted after I close the meeting. So now, pay attention. This is important now. Assignment next week on Friday. Laptops. You need the laptops. Come with the laptops. Come 10 minutes earlier. 10 minutes earlier, I'm going to give you the case. You can start reading the case, and after you finish the reading at 12:30, you can start working on your answer. The answer will be required memo. That means you have to follow the memo format. On the memo format, uh, please make sure that you follow exactly the requirements here, which are posted with the sample of the memo, which is right here. So you have to have to whom you're writing, from who are you. That will be your name, directly your name. Two, you can say manager or director of the company, whatever it is. Today, date will be the date of February 21st, and subject will be uh, the subject will be analysis of the current situation. And then we can start easy. The following memo will discuss the issues in the company and start with the problems. In the case, in the scenario that you're going to see, there will be 8 different issues. What I want you to do is check first different type of businesses. And what are the type of the businesses? We have corporation, we have a partnership, we have proprietorship. If the person asks you what's the difference between corporation and proprietorship, tell him what the difference is. In discussion, answer pros and cons. What's the pros to have a corporation? What's the negative side to have a corporation? What's the positive to have a partnership, proprietorship? What's the negative to have the proprietorship? You have to list 3 of those. In order to get the correctness of the answers, I'm looking for 3 of those, and then provide a recommendation which one is the best for this company in this situation. Second one, you have to come up with the cost per unit. There will be information about the cost, and you have to come up with the cost per unit. Sales price will be given. Then the question is going to ask, what if the cost increase? What will be the profit, and how this is going to affect the company? That's issue number 2. Number 3, ratios coming again. And it's going to come now activity ratios again. And you can even comment on the current ratio. I want you to comment on the current ratio as well. So the question specifically going to ask you which ratios I want you to discuss, and once you see the ratios, you have to tell compare the ratio of the company with the industry, explain what the ratio means, what the ratio measures, how this is it favorable for this company, is it not favorable, what that means for this company, interpret the ratio in the language that people can understand, and then provide recommendation how you can improve the ratio. So probably if it's the ratio, let's say, is accounts receivables, what drives the accounts receivables ratio? First, credit sales. Second, accounts receivables. So how can I improve the accounts receivable ratio? Well,
Paying more on cash.
pay more in cash or start chasing the clients.
Yeah.
Improve the company credit policy. Don't give them
Yeah.
just sales.
Yeah. Fine penalties for delayed payments and so.
Right. And then you have to comment on the current ratio. On the current ratio, how to improve the current ratio, you have to understand what the current ratio measures, what's included in the current ratio, current assets, current liability. How can you improve the current ratio? That's why I want you to think about it. Sell your inventory, pay your accounts payable. Sell your inventory, collect the cash, pay accounts payable. You have to be careful because when you're selling the inventory, you're replacing one current assets with another current asset. So that doesn't improve the ratio yet. But if you have the
Professor,
cash, you can pay the accounts payable.
so Professor, you'll be like giving us assignment on the topic of ratio analysis,
Sorry?
and this you will be giving us assignments on the topic of ratio analysis, and this our today
No,
we
no, no.
read
There will
like.
be scenario with the company, and there will be different
Okay.
requirements inside the company.
Okay.
Something like that. It's gonna be like a case, one scenario, one company that have a different problems.
Okay.
And at some point, any of those can come. The other
Hmm.
the other thing that you're gonna have in the same case, though the other problem there will be a problem with the internal control. One of the internal control issues there is gonna need to be fixed. So you have to identify what's the current control issue. Is it gonna be segregation of duty? Is it gonna be is it gonna be human error or human element? You have to identify which one. Then you'd have to tell me what's the impact of this, where I should be concerned and why this is a problem, and fix the problem. Recommend me course of action. Tell me either fire the person or hire another person, whatever you decide to do. Depends on the situation. That's number 4 or 5. Number 6, another issue is going to be cost of the asset. Now, for the cost of the asset, I'm going to be specific here with you. I'm going to chase you for application of this one.
Plant.
I want to know that you can allocate the cost that you pay for the assets with fair value more than the cost, and you can allocate the cost for every single asset. So again, you're going to pay less for something that's worth more. And I want you to assign the cost for every single asset. Then, once you do that, when you come up with the cost for that particular asset, I want you to recommend appropriate depreciation method for those assets. There will be different assets, not like this, not like right now what you're seeing. So you have to be comfortable with the assets and understand for which asset it's more appropriate to apply the unit of production, for which one is more appropriate to apply straight line method, for which one is more appropriate to apply double declining. Another thing that I want you to think is, and I want you to discuss, will be in the case, another problem will be about borrowing versus investing. So basically, you're gonna be short on cash. So one option will be somebody give you a credit. The other option is somebody investing in the company. I want you to tell me and discuss which are implication of when you have to borrow money and which are implication when somebody invests in the company. What you're paying when you borrow money and what you're paying when somebody invests in your company. So basically, I'm chasing the difference between interest and dividend,
Dividend.
right? There will be an
And
ethical problem.
all of these answer will be doing in the memo
Yes,
form.
everything is in the
Be
memo. So
writing
basically, what
one, two,
the easiest way to answer to prepare your answer is every time when you see a problem, discuss that problem. Identify the problem, discuss the problem, provide recommendation, move to the next problem. So now, again, and the last thing will be there will be ethical problem. There definitely will be ethical problem. I want you to find out why this is ethical, who is involved, who is not involved, and how can you solve the problem. And that's about it. So you should expect between 8, 7, 8, 9 problems. How the marks gonna come? Now let's go to your marks. From where the marks, how you gonna get your marks? Your marks gonna come from the two components here. One component here under the course overview and syllabus. When you scroll down, you're gonna see business memo rubric. This is from where the marks gonna come, based on this rubric, nothing else. Can you guys see it? So in order to get the full marks, I'm gonna give you the scenario when you're getting the full marks. You're gonna have two portions here. One portion will be the content, the other one will be presentation. On the presentation, focus is on the memo format, how well you're using the paragraph structure. Do you have a subheadings for every problem? Are you appropriately structuring your answer and how you develop your answer? And chasing for the grammatical issue. That will be 5 points here. Next, 15 to 20. Maximum you can get 20 points. So 5 is gonna come from the format and from the memo itself. 15 is gonna come from the content. So if you catch all the 8 or 9 problems, whatever they are, they will be specifically communicated with you. If you catch all of them, if you discuss all of them truly, if you provide when it's needed discussions on the qualitative quantitative analysis, and you provide for every problem that you find a recommendation, which is solid recommendation, well supported, you're gonna get full marks. Type of analysis which are expected from you will be positive, negative, quantitative, qualitative. So every time when you have calculation, you also have to comment on that calculation. And find on that comment, is it beneficial for the company? Is it not beneficial company? Recommendation will be considered recommendation only and only you clearly say, my recommendation is go with the corporation. My recommendation is what would be that? So let's say improve your credit policy for the new customers. My recommendation is use the straight line method for this asset.
So we can give 3 to 4 recommendation or only one recommendation.
So you can discuss, but at the end, finish a recommendation to be considered recommendation. It has to be my recommendation is, if you have to repeat my recommendation 10 times, repeat it 10 times. But I want you to be explicit on the recommendation part. And that's about it with this.
Sorry, may I ask a question?
Yes,
My
please.
internet, yeah,
Yes.
my internet has been so bad today. You were discussing the asset-related question regarding the cost allocation and purchase price, I think, and that's when my internet bombed out. Is it possible to go through it again? Sorry
Yes.
about that.
That's okay. Totally okay. Just a second. So that was I was talking about this one on the asset allocation. Again, you're gonna purchase asset for a certain amount that you're gonna pay, and then you're gonna be given cost of the fair value. So basically, what you have to allocate is based on the cost that you pay, to allocate how much of the total amount that you pay, it will be allocated for the first, second, and third and fourth asset. So basically, you have to do whatever we did in class for the lump sum purchase. When you're buying something for less price than the actual price is, when you're getting discounts on the purchase. And once you come up with the cost, you have to recommend me a depreciation method for the different assets.
So if I understood you correctly, it's the cost of the asset less the discounts that we received in a percentage allocation, giving us the allocated cost.
So listen, we did this in class. You had to do this in your assignment. I remember we did this in your assignment as well.
Yes.
So I want you to repeat this one in this case.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Excuse me, Professor.
Yes.
Regarding quiz 2, like, does the